Hi, everybody. Um, just want to thank all of you who sent Christmas cards. Uh, it's always a pleasure, and I want to thank people who sent a few questions in as well. Tonight, I think what we're going to do is I'll try and answer one question from Christina, and then I think we're going to meditate because we'll have uh, uh, a few questions for uh, Saturday. We can always use more, of course, um, but we'll we'll try to do uh, this question, and then we will meditate after. It's always good to meditate before seminars a little longer. I know sometimes it's difficult to even think of a question. It's amazing how many people have talked to me about this, and I understand the real degree of difficulty. Um, we get so tied up with what we're actually doing um, that we kind of think there's nothing in what we're doing that really is a question. And there are loads of questions in what we're doing, but we'll do the best. We'll just keep doing the best we can. This question again is from Christina Chalmensky, um, and it's interesting in a kind of way. I'm not sure this is exactly what she wants to ask, but it's close enough, I think. If our emotions and feelings are not tangible pointers showing us who we are, then how do we know who we are? Actually, our emotions and feelings are tangible pointers. What the difficulty is we're so used to doing what we do that we don't see our interactions with other people as uh, pointers of how we are. We see them as reflexes relating to, and valued ones, of course, relating to circumstance uh, in a very explicit set of um, re- relational responses that we have with each other. And in fact, those pointers directly indicate to us um, that we're having responses in a certain kind of a way for a particular purpose. And that purpose is often related to a kind of form of self protection. And it's comforting to us to continually engage the way we have engaged before, even though, to be honest, often we do not even understand that we are engaging in any kind of a way that anyone would think would not be helpful. This is normal for us. Look, we're human beings. We come from this planet. This planet is engaging with continual growth in kind of a way, and also recycling old patterns that have been literally around for eons of time. It is profoundly curious to me, I'm sure to you as well, how we repeat over and over, worldwide, nationwide, individually, very similar things, which really end up being closely affiliated with a concept that might be called kind of competing for attention. It's bizarre. Well, maybe it's comforting to people with vulnerabilities, all of us, um, to express in a certain manner that we personally believe we need to be accepted by everyone, I guess, or at least those around us, from our perspective. In fact, this is not always accepted at all. And we even search for people to get acceptance from this kind of thing. And then we continually validate or ourselves and invalidate others. This is a difficult thing to override. And it's been, if you look at nation to nation, it's been around forever. Since I don't recall being a person with a spear in my hand when I, and quite a number of years ago, with maybe one exception, then you're not really basically looking at the possibility of those times being recycled. But in our relative modern times, let's say Greek civilizations upward, and Roman and European interactions, North American interactions, the movement of civilization forcing their way into territories of other people, of course. And of course, under those circumstances, whoever has the best armaments often proceed forward. And our history tells us that, of course, that has happened for a long, long time. Unfortunately, it's ever hopeful that it will not happen in our future, but chances are these things, again, are uppermost in our survival mentality or emotionality. And we do these same things in a smaller way by protecting our images, etc. In our day-to-day lives with people that we meet and know sometimes, but not all the time. So we're not always like that. So one could ask a question, why are we drawn to being like that? Well, it's internal pressure, possibly. But it's one really big, interesting word that comes out all the time. We are reaching to comfort ourselves somehow in a manner that would be helpful in our version of what we believe things should be like. The comforting aspect, as it matures, looks also at others as well as yourself. It's not an easy thing to do, easy thing to talk about, and even an easy thing to think you're actually doing that. But most of our engagement relative to comforting is in its early stages. That relates to individuality. Individuals who believe things should be this way, that way, all the rest of it, and use force to engage with, or verbal engagement, or putting down others who don't think like them. All this kind of idea is there because we're basically young, principally almost like children, although that seems hard to think of. Hard to think that we could be so young. An interesting question, Christina, because when we look at things as if we are watching our internalizations, watching them, and then perhaps even questioning why we do things exactly this way, exactly that way. Is there any other options? How will that affect others? How will this affect me? one could say. And attempting to learn beyond the reified, stiff way that we sometimes have of allowing ourselves no negotiation with respect to how we think we should be. This is very difficult for all of us. You can use this in any manner that you can relate to. Now, look, you can't do this 24 hours a day. You've got to give yourself some space. You've got to allow yourself a little bit of leeway, I think. Well, but that's up to you. Your thinking as well is very important in your relationship with you. If you can allow yourself to say, okay, look, this is what I am this moment right now. My goodness, I wonder why. Am I okay doing this? Well, okay or not, this is what I'm doing. Now, how can I do that slightly different? How can I slow the intensity internally so I can ask myself a couple of questions? Do I do this regularly? Chances are you can say yes to that. And chances are you can say sometimes no to that. Because you're not always one way of engaging. You have very constructive, positive ways of engaging with yourself and with others. And other times, there's a flex inside, a reflex. It's almost like a strong will to not to accept that you can be any different in a given situation because the experience that you have internally throughout your life, all those experiences, they accumulate. And sometimes you're extremely wise with them and know almost ahead of time that this will not be a good thing to do. But oops, here it comes again. Flies out of your mouth. Learning how to soften down that reflex down is extremely difficult. Sometimes it can even be basically funny because you, from the inside out, start realizing that basically had no purpose at all. And in a kind of a way, you don't even agree with it. But it's part of how you have learned how to survive over the years that you've been here on this planet. You've copied this from somebody else, perhaps. We're great copiers. There's no negation there because we copy good stuff as well. Territorial stuff, we copy that. We copy attitudes that have been fairly helpful in other people. Values that other people think. We copy like crazy. And yet, it's hard to spend the time to slow everything down and wonder about why it would be so necessary to express in a certain manner that protects an image that no one else may see other than you in your assertions about how you believe you are and how you believe others should be and how others should act towards you and how you should act towards them. It's what we all do. So often when I look at this stuff, I'm trying to think of how it might be helpful to recognize some of the things that we do consistently, basically, to elevate our perceptions or recognitions of value that we assert are ours. This is very difficult. As you can, even listening to this, it must be sometimes interesting, sometimes not so much, because why should we bother doing that? Nobody else is doing it. Well, other people are doing it, but they can't all the time. We can do it, but we can't all the time. So we have set up this very comforting image in and around us for a purpose of being of some value, because we have a fear of not being valuable if we do anything else, or taken as some worth that we believe we need to have, otherwise we will not be able to feel comforted internally. And we don't think about the comfort of others and how difficult it is to them to be comfortable inside themselves. They're having a difficult time just as much as we all are. It's a hard one to understand. But the question is, are these emotions and feelings, are not, if these emotions and feelings are not tangible pointers, they are, but they're there for us to learn from. Often by the time you reach 20s and 30s and you're starting to consider 40s, you're starting to consider the fact that you have reached a point of reference where your growing process is kind of over. You've done a lot of stuff, and now you're a mature adult. And why should you bother checking how you've done that out? Well, you don't have to. Or you can. I remember reading a book, which I shared with all of you at the 5-day seminar. It's up to you. And it was a Buddhist orientation. I found it interesting. It was mild, but just something in a kind of a way that was proposing the concept in a Buddhist way, always in the way that we're talking about it, but it doesn't matter, of opening yourself up to being allowed to begin to learn again, to be curious about, okay, here's this image, this picture, click, of us, and we have it in spades. Unless you think you don't, but you do. But here we go. So, what about this image thing? Am I okay with it? Well, it's not only about how you see you, it's not only about how others see you, it's about how much you're intrigued about the mystery of you. And we are mysteries. A fascinating mystery. We have an understanding, a little bit about ourselves. We believe we have a great understanding of others, no matter who they are and wherever they are. So we make assertions about all types of people and what they are like and all the rest of the stuff. And we do this consistently. Matter of fact, our news background is always about that. There's that little bend in which way you should think and which way you should do. And that should allow you to think about what they're saying and not necessarily agree with it. Yeah, okay, fine. But the thinking about what you do and say and not necessarily agree with it is an interesting question. It doesn't have to have at the end of it bad, good, right, wrong. It can say, wow, I didn't even know I thought that way. I don't even know I'm thinking something until I speak it. Because I don't know how many out there sit down now. Let's sit down for another 25 minutes, not say anything, and think about how a human being is. Often you'll come up, let's say 5 minutes instead of 25, you'll come up with something fairly quickly. Or you'll rant, or you'll say, oh, yeah, no, we're not that bad. We have a willingness to learn if we think it's valuable to do so. If we don't think it's valuable to do so, we won't even lift a finger to attempt to understand beyond what we already think without thinking, or react and become very kind of proud, a little vain sometimes, about what we think. The good thing about that is you speak it out loud. The not so good thing about it is you don't listen to what you're saying. Well, maybe you do. Maybe you've already figured it all out. Most of us have not, by the way, just so you know. Most of us are still recognizing that whatever we think today, however we react today, there's a hope we may see it differently tomorrow because, or at least slightly broader than we normally do, because we would like to continue to learn. Now, I'm very young, and you are very young at heart. And we're attempting to learn and attempting to understand broader than what we think we can allow ourselves to do so in a way that is comforting to us. One can also say, well, I already figured everything out, and therefore that's comforting to me. Now, I already know all that stuff, whatever that stuff is. That stuff comes up every second of your life, which means it's not the same stuff. The dialogue that you can have internally is valuable. The dialogue that you have externally, if your ears will allow you to, you can hear and then draw a transcript in your mind and say, if someone said this to me, would I be happy with it? Would I be okay with this? Well, often the answer is no. And sometimes the answer is you don't care because you're hurting and you've conscripted, brought into you that unwillingness to let your hurts soften down. Well, we've all got some of that. But comforting yourself, have we learned to attempt to comfort ourselves? Well, one method that we talk about all the time is asking yourself to do the life map. Sounds a little silly, but if your hands are on and you can feel that energy and you ask for help in the place where you think you would like to get it, you'll have excerpts of times when those things don't come up automatically. They still will, because we still hold them dearly to it's part of our regime that we use for the purpose of helping ourselves to be okay with ourselves. That's the comforting part. Comforting can have a double-edged sword. Yes. So Sometimes you'll feel like it really worked. Sometimes you'll feel like you basically don't want it to work. And true, it won't as much, but a little part of you will, and that will be helpful. The other thing is recognizing those times and attempting to allow yourself to think about them. Don't tell anybody else about this stuff. Please. All it does, it charges up your own images of being valuable because you're telling somebody else up. If you're working in a therapeutic context of some kind, if you're working in a writing context like Freud was found very important, writing about stuff. It brings up more emotion. Oh, I warn you about that. If you're talking to a dear friend, and I really have to be a dear friend, somebody who's not going to blab this material all over the place, meaning be normal, it just slips out, this kind of thing. Then what you're really doing is you're sincere. You're learning how to be sincere inside you. And what you don't understand, if you can do that, it's shocking to the system. The system that you've constructed will fight back a little because you're used to being comforted in a different way. It's okay if it fights back. You don't have to agree with it. Soften down a bit. Say, no, I think I'm still working with that. I think I'd like to do a little bit less of that. And you heard a little bit less of that. You work in increments here. You don't work in, that's bad. This is only good. And these are not increments. This is what has engaged with us historically, much before the Romans and the Greeks. And in modern times, if you call the 40s and the teenage years, 19th, 20th century, if you call them kind of in the same context, valuable things to learn from. We have enough. In the 21st century, we can still learn from. So, what you're doing is not putting anything down. You're trying to understand, why would someone do that? Why would someone do this? The someone happens to have your name on it, but if you find something out about yourself, you'll automatically know a lot about other people. Because other people do some things similar to you. This allows you to be okay with you and understand that you don't have to do as much of something that you may find that you would not like of other people to do to you. That's just a basic thing. Yeah, we can say that's the old golden rule routine. Well, no, that's living life and learning how to be happy. Reasonably so. And in between where we are and where one might be moving towards, broadening an understanding, allowing yourself to recognize that others are hurting as much as you, nervous as much as you, afraid as much as you, or me, or anyone else, just living life. You begin to understand that sometimes others have a reflexive response as fast as you. And later they wish probably they hadn't had that response as fast. But they have their purposes. And those purposes are relating to our level of engagement here on these planes. So when you're looking at them, you're trying to broaden out your perspective. Yes, broaden out your understanding. We said that before. But also looking at meaning in life and wondering how you can exercise movements within your own person to give you more, from your perspective even, mine or anybody else's, give you more of a sense of value that doesn't have to be placed on the surface things that many of us have practiced through our lifetimes. Whether you consider them surface or not might be a different story. Let's see what else she says. Is living every minute of the day consciously a part of getting to know who you are? It sounds like a weird thing, but yes, it is. But it's not in the sense looking for things to blame you for. It's looking in a kind of a strange way. It's looking to see how you function under these circumstances, knowing you don't do well with it. In others, you do well with it. You do well with another sense. And others, maybe you don't want to be involved with doing something that makes you look like you don't know or you can't really do something. Like, I wouldn't ask anybody to go curling who's really afraid of throwing that curling stone down the trenches, down the sides, or bowling the same way, or playing hockey if you don't skate. But you could do that for yourself. I'd like to learn how to play hockey. Oh, how are you going to do that? Well, I have to buy skates. Well, when are you going to do that? Well, I'll go look, see if I can afford them. Okay. When are you going to do that? Well, that's too much pressure. Don't do too much pressure on me. Let me put my own pressure on it. Well, that's preserving the comfort zone of not doing something. But it doesn't have to be hockey, for heaven's sake. It can be anything. Try something. Give yourself a little leeway. Make sure it's something that you might be okay with starting. And then let yourself fail. Be embarrassed a little bit. And then you'll see, yeah, that's where I am. As long as nobody else notices I can't skate, well, you're going to fall. Most of us fell the first time we skated. No, how could that happen? Yeah, learn how those movements occur. Every time you engage with seeing something that you haven't seen before within you, just say, oh my goodness, I never saw that. Instead of, oh my God, look what I do. That's terrible. Not helpful. Doesn't help at all, as a matter of fact. Turns you back into the places where you were before to get comfort. And remember, do little things. Succeed a little bit. Be okay with that. If you fail a little bit, try again. You can do these things physically, emotionally, or mentally. Many of us have some things that we can never be very good at. Is that allowed? Absolutely. What you're doing, though, if you're watching from the inside, you can say, I don't think I'll be very good at that. I've tried it 3 or 4 times. Doesn't work out for me very well. My coordination is not very good. My way of thinking doesn't cover that. It's okay. So if then I know I should listen to others who are better at that particular thing, so I can begin to learn slowly how to do that, because it's taking me a long time to figure that one out. Just see it, recognize it, go from there. So you're not negating yourself. You're putting yourself in a position of being willing, even though you don't have extreme attributes in that particular thing. You have something. You're alive. And you're a functional being, regardless of how you put yourself down or elevated yourself. Go slow with this from the inside. Watch slowly. You're not looking for negatives. You're looking for stuff, positive, anything. How do I interact with this? If you're looking at emotion, you're looking at reactions. You're looking at thinking. How are you thinking? Where is your observational level? Is it way up here looking down? Is it way down here looking up? Is it in the middle? Or have you got them both? Physically, try and do something literally to keep your body moving. Bodies are very important here on these planes. Okay, is living every minute of the day consciously a part of getting to know who you are? To be honest, I don't know how a person, unless they have nothing else to do, can do this every day. Here's a trick. Do it a little at a time. You'll find that you, like everything else and anything else that might occur in relationship to your personality, you suddenly notice you're doing it without even trying to do it, just a little bit. It means it's like a patchwork quilt. You're putting something else into the overall form of a personality that's already constructed the way you believe it needs to be. A little bit at a time. You're just helping yourself, little at a time. Gentle if you can. Positive if that makes some sense. Doing negation is maintaining a kind of view. In other words, putting yourself down. No one has perfect answers all the time. Therefore, putting yourself down all the time doesn't make any sense either. Others don't have perfect answers all the time. Considering that you don't either is a breakthrough for you if you think you only have those answers most of the time. What does that mean? It means you're having the ability to allow yourself to consider other things rather than what you believe must be true. That is not easy for us as human beings once we make up our so-called mind. Usually it's an emotional mind that we make up. I think Rajiv talked about the solar plexus, very old teacher, and being another brain. Currently, our scientists are saying, well, the skin is a brain. The nervous system has internal engagements with some animals that act like a brain. Our brain is there. Our reflexes are a brain. Try not reacting under some conditions that you normally would, and you'll find that your reactions are there before you can stop them. It didn't come from here. It came from viscerally from your practiced emotional base. Okay, so see it. You're trying to understand you. You're curious about you. Why do you choose this book versus that book? This way of engaging with these people rather than those people. Check it out. You'll be shocked at some of the answers, or you won't want to know what they are. That's internalizing, understanding, smiling. My God. These are methods of comforting myself for a purpose that relates to being valued somehow. That if I don't do them, I'm sure others won't value me. And never mind others. You won't value me. You being the you that's giving the value to you. It's fascinating that all of this, knowing you the best you can, is part of leaving an opening for perceiving energy as it operates through you. Because, in a kind of a way, energy that operated through you before, when you did certain things, was saying, okay, you really want to do those things? Well, do them. Now, how'd that work for you? We don't hear that. We normally hear, oh, gee, that was a good one. That was good for me. That was good for so-and-so. That values you or devalues you or moves you into an inflation, either way. And a stark decision about being this way or this way or this way or this way or this way, even unknowingly, not consciously, unknowingly. Is that okay? It's part of what we do. It's not okay or bad or good. It's what we do unknowingly. But it's part of the makeup of a system that we call our personalities and how we have engaged with them internally. Strangely enough, as we are conscious of that, we begin to be conscious of energy that we have used for the purpose of doing these things. We have used it like a tool, except, of course, it operates that way. It will allow you to use it for anything, for a purpose, so that you can see what you're using it for. So that ultimately you can see that. And therefore, in its expression through you, you move towards not interfering with it for the purpose that it's there for. And that is also not only to help you, but to help others as you grow. So others can grow then. That's engaging with an idea that relates to how do I help? How can I help? For some of you, that idea is profoundly important. I also find it important somehow, in some way, best we can. So how are we doing? I said that we would stop a little early to meditate more because of our seminar coming up on Saturday. So let's do that. In the meantime, if anyone feels comfortable with sending in some more questions, I'd really appreciate it. I like to know where you are, and it's okay. Everyone has difficulty with these questionings, these questions. It's shocking to find out that some of the questions that do come in are similar to others, because we all have these internal things going on because we're sincere in attempting to understand not only us, but life itself. And that is a wondrous thing. I wish everybody very good things until and past Saturday, and we'll see you on Saturday. Hang on, and we'll get some music, and I'll just turn off my film here. Okay. Just begin to do the life map. And good night, everybody.